What is up, everybody? Welcome to the tip-off. It is Thursday. This is the show that sets the stage for all the most important news, daily fantasy plays, and bets on tonight's 6-game NBA slate and 5-game MLB slate. I am your host, Kayla Knierim. Joining me today, we have Dr. Ben Rasa, Chris Spags. Fellas, how's your Thursdays going?
Feeling good today. We got Dr. Ben back, which is always a highlight for both our prop bettors out there as well as us on the show. And it's going to be tough because yesterday we feel like we fully degenerated into silly season on what Kayla deemed a wacky Wednesday. And now yes. I feel like we have to have a serious and somber Thursday with Dr. Ben, bringing people actual advice that's going to help.
Yeah, it's all business here. It's funny. I tuned in at the right time. I turned on the tip-off just to make sure we weren't off the rails, and I couldn't even see the track. You guys were totally off the rails. Eric was trying to create some sort of emoji, and there was the crying Eric. I don't know where that ended up, but it seemed like a good time. I was a little jealous I wasn't able to get in on the fun yesterday.
I haven't checked in on the voting. I'm going to do that really quickly. What did everyone decide on Eric's emoji? Not that this is important in any way.
I mean, I didn't see his poll actually. I would. That's fine. I didn't. I just didn't mean to laugh at my own innuendo or Kayla's inadvertent innuendo.
Spags thinks he's hilarious.
But no, actually, I'll pull up the options now. But I did think the Eric Lindquist emoji was the crying emoji had to be the one. But what were his poll out? We got Kermit Eric, Nurse Eric, MJ crying meme Eric, or other. I'm going to vote for crying meme, but I feel like him tying himself to MJ. I don't know that I love that for him. And the voting, it seems 41% Kermit Eric. So I'm okay with that, I guess. If I got a little Kermit Eric in the mix hole.
Yeah, that works. It's not going to be Nurse. Let me tell you, if I'm going to have to do this doctor theme, we're not going with Nurse Eric because that's a duo I don't want any part of. I'm sorry to say.
Yeah, the Nurse Eric bit was really just, Greg, and Greg always a funny guy, but I feel like that was one where he was just making the RC Cola to my Diet Coke of creating Dr. Ben, making Dr. Ben into the money doctor we all now know and love. And it's like Nurse Eric is just like the Tack Belong player, the Knuckles, the Edachina, or along with Sonic the Hedgehog, I think. Knuckles.
Doctors, nurses, equally important, all do incredible work, and we are thankful for them all. All right. Just thought I'd add that in.
For all the nurses watching, yeah, that's the round of applause.
They're doing way more important work than we are. All right. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for countless hours of content on the NBA, MLB, NHL, PGA, MMA, and NASCAR, and every other sport that is currently in season. Let's talk about our sponsor, No House Advantage, who is taking a different spin on daily fantasy sports by offering player prop contests across the NBA, MLB, NFL, PGA for cash prizes. This exclusively peer-to-peer fantasy sports platform levels the playing field and makes it easier for you to win real cash compared with your traditional DFS sites. The best part is you can join for free today. Just download the No House Advantage app and use promo code Awesemo to receive a first match deposit bonus of up to $20. Be your friends, not the house. Win big with player props today. Guys, it's Earth Day. How are you celebrating, by the way?
Lighting aerosol cans on fire.
Yeah, I'm reusing the same water bottle, doing my part, I guess. I don't know.
Look at you, Ben. Well done. Me too.
See, look at these bags. You're setting us back.
I'm using a glass. So I guess I'm being so good. I'm doing something good. Actually, the day has been set. Mike, we have an issue with flies here where we sometimes keep the terrace door open or the balcony door, I guess, really open. I know. I'm saying
fancy.
Terrace, though, wow. Making it much more fancy than it actually is. It's just the balcony in an apartment building in LA. But I like to, keep it open so the dogs can go sit outside in the sun or whatever. And apparently it's fly season out here. So my girlfriend's just walking around swinging like our little zapper thing, which looks like a tennis racket, and creating various fly traps out of like wine and dish soap and other things. And it's become a real battle here. Not very different from a sitcom, I guess, at this point in my life.
The fruit flies are real in LA, and they always come out when the weather gets warm, and it is so annoying. I make traps too, these homemade traps, and I just watch them die in the vinegar.
I feel bad because like sometimes the flies, like in here, I have like windows and they're big clear windows. So the flies will go out there, but there isn't a way because there's a screen on the window too. I can't even let them out. So I'm like, I'm sorry. Like I have to kill you. If you can't figure out how to get through this little crack in the screen, I have no way to help. And that's my Earth Day contribution, is murdering flies that are probably really good for the ecosystem somehow.
I doubt that. We're going to get to some NBA stuff. How about that? First of all, guys, yesterday was a big day for people who knew who O'Shea Brissett was. Why can't I talk today? In the NBA, with high scores across the NBA and NBA DFS world. How did it go for you guys? Ben, we'll start with you.
So it went actually pretty well. I was on the golf show with our friend Eric, and I was sweating out the Suns game, and I got off the show. Game was over. Booker hit one right at the end. They were up 6 with like 13 seconds left, and then my phone erupted like an earthquake, and all they all said was Embiid, Embiid, and I thought something terrible happened, very close to something terrible, but the Suns did hold on. That was a big win. I'm not going to take too much and say now they're suddenly a different team come playoff time, but I was very impressed that they grabbed that win, and I believed in them that they could. Great game, almost a legendary shot. So avoided that one. That would have been an all-time bad beat.
That was a really good game by Embiid, and that was a situation where paying attention to news, watching live before lock shows and all that stuff came in crucial because Embiid was somehow very under-owned for a spot where there was no Ben Simmons, no Tobias Harris. We'll see if that ends up being the situation today because we don't know a lot of the questions for the injuries that we normally do. But a good slate for me. I had a ton of O'Shea. Brissett was thankfully buying in on both. A guy has been pretty productive, but seemed a little bit underappreciated because, again, people don't know who some of these guys are. And I think the main lesson is for NBA, obviously playing the stars, the Embiids of the world, the Kyries of the world. Those guys came through in a big way yesterday. But really also the Pacers, I think, are the best case study of what you're going to see for the next few weeks until this regular season ends. Is you're going to be spots where a Domantas Sabonis out, as Miles Turner's out, where people don't know what these situations look like because they don't happen that often. Goga Bitadze also being out. So then it opens up opportunities for guys that people just don't know. And at a certain point, you just have to play whoever's left because the guys are going to have big upside. And that's what happened yesterday with Brissett, with LeVert, with Brogdon, all having monster days. And that's the fun that lies ahead in NBA DFS that I'm sure we'll be talking about ad nauseum on the tip-off.
All right. Let's head on to our NBA key news of the night. First up, we've got Jaylen Brown is doubtful to play for Boston versus Phoenix in a game where Jason Tatum and Kemba Walker will be available. Spags, who do you trust for Boston versus a tough Suns team?
So I have some concerns about Kemba Walker just because he has played down a lot. And Chris Paul, one-on-one defense we talk about a lot on the shows. It's not something you should ever be pinning your hopes to because there are games where a guy like Ben Simmons against Kyrie Irving a couple of weeks ago, Ben Simmons was doing his best defense. Matisse Thybulle's doing his best defense, and Kyrie still torched him over and over again every time he was getting a shot up. And I think that could be the case in most situations. But Chris Paul yesterday just made Shake Milton look like he didn't even want to be in the league. And I think that's something that worries me a little bit with Kemba, but he is right now the guy I think looks the best out of Boston. Maybe I will mute my exposure a little bit if he gets too high. I think going to Kemba, going to Jason Tatum as a safer play, I think is going to be the move. Both guys get pretty big upticks in usage and assists. And I think I'm less into Marcus Smart than the field's going to be, but Kemba and Tatum to me, I think take a big jump upwards that they would not have taken today if Jaylen Brown was going to be in.
No doubt Brown being out solidifies that. I will say our ownership projections, which are free today, so you can go check this out yourself. I was a little surprised that Kemba is sitting north of 20 right now. He's at 22%, and that could change. I have no problem with the play, but I didn't know. I was a little surprised that he's looking that chalky, and it is, of course, a product of Brown not being there. And you look at this, I will say, looking at the game from a betting standpoint, I don't like this spot at all for Phoenix. It's a tough turnaround. The Celtics are a 1.5 point dog at home. I think they win this game outright. That's not even a hot take. It's basically a coin flip. And to do that, you're going to need Tatum and Kemba probably to do the heavy lifting. So I think they can probably whip them on the boards. Phoenix, not a great rebounding team. But for the DFS side of things, the big time players on the Celtics need to step up here.
Well, in that same game, Jay Crowder will be out for Phoenix tonight, while Dario Saric is questionable. Ben, who benefits for the Suns on their back-to-back?
Yeah, this is a weird spot. Like I said, I don't like the Suns in general here, but if Saric plays, he's very cheap and he'll be a value play. If he sits as well, you've got Bridges, you've got Cam Johnson, I guess, if you're going pretty thin. And then, of course, it looks like the backcourt is intact with CP3 and Booker. So they're not really preferred options in my mind, even on a slate that's not huge. I just don't like this spot. Like I said, it's a tough turnaround after an emotional game against Philly yesterday. So I think for Phoenix, primarily what you're going to be doing is spending down for value, try to unlock. And as more injury news comes in, I think the Suns will become less and less relevant on the slate.
Yeah, I think Cam Johnson gets the uptick in minutes, but I would think he's going to be a bit less productive playing that court time, not in that second unit, playing more alongside Booker, playing more alongside Ayton. I don't think that's the best thing for him, but minutes-wise, I think Cam Johnson, it wouldn't shock me to see his ownership climb throughout the day because people starting to realize like, oh yeah, Crowder's out. And I think especially if Sarge isn't playing, you're going to see that Crowder ownership that Cam Johnson ownership go up quite a bit. So that to me is the one play that jumps out as getting a benefit. But I also think because of it being very obvious that he's going to get that benefit, if you see 28-minute projection on a lot of the sites out there, like Awesemo is giving Cam Johnson today. I think he's going to become one of the preeminent value plays if something else doesn't open up. And that to me, I think just comes with a lot of risk. Cam Johnson's fine at a fine price point, but if he ends up a chalk play on the slate, as could happen and does happen a lot in the industry, I think that would be something to move away from right away, because Cam Johnson is not going to be as good of a play as he is on a per minute basis normally.
Zach LaVine remains out for the Bulls, and the result is Kobe White expected to be one of the highest owned plays of the day. So Spags, are you buying in on Kobe or any other Bulls versus Charlotte?
So Kobe, I think more of a core play, or at least it looks like a core play for people on DraftKings rather than FanDuel. FanDuel, the pricing there and the positionality and all that, not quite as much of an issue to worry about. But on DraftKings, I think his ownership is high enough that I want to be there a little. I think to me getting above the field seems risky because I don't know the upside is massive for Kobe White, especially in games where Tomas Satoransky's been out there. We've seen some upside, but it's not quite as reliable. We've also seen him basically be pretty mediocre per minute along with the rest of the way he's been all season long. So I'm always kind of leery of Kobe White chalk. I think to me right now, Daniel Tice looks more appealing as a value play than going to a Kobe White, but sort of hard to argue it because there is a ceiling there. I just think when he's chalky, the ceiling not being there could really be a problem on a shortish slate today in the NBA.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to fault anyone if you're looking at large field tournaments and you think that, because to me, the floor is pretty secure. He's going to see minutes in the low 30s, barring something miraculous. This is a competitive game against just two awful teams. So all that checks out. And certainly the front court, I think, is more crowded for the Bulls. So he's going to have opportunities. I do think the ceiling could be mitigated, but certainly on DraftKings 5,500, more often than not, I think you could probably go there and leverage elsewhere. Other than that, yeah, you mentioned Tice. I think the rest of the value for the Bulls does come with the bigs. And again, that kind of just solidifies Kobe White's role here without Zach LaVine.
Anthony Davis is questionable to return tonight for the Lakers, though he said he intends to play. So Ben, how does his return change things versus Dallas? And is AD playable?
So he's, in my mind, definitely not playable coming off a somewhat serious injury here. I'd be absolutely stunned if there's not a hard minutes cap. They're planning for things much better than beating Dallas tonight. So him coming back, it just makes it that much tougher to kind of play the Lakers. And I mean, you click on the Lakers, it's a laundry list of Q tags. Obviously, LeBron is not there, but they're working back. I think really it's more take a wait and see approach. We'll probably get some indication of what they're targeting, but I feel very strongly that, AD is not going to be playable until he revs back up.
Yeah, I think Anthony Davis, I'm on the same page as Ben here, not playable to me, especially at DraftKings 9,400 there. I mean, on FanDuel too, it's not going to be any different. I think I don't have that price point in front of me, but it's not as flattering as you'd want a guy coming off of injury who also projects to play 13 minutes today. It's not looking the best to have that be a play in your roster, but I think if he is going to play, and I think this is where we need news, where if you got a minutes cap news and it's like, oh, Anthony Davis could play 20 minutes, he's going to be playing short bursts where, he'll get like 2 4-minute stints, I guess, in the first half, and then maybe a little bit more in the second half or something like that, maybe 5-minute stints. Like, I think you could sort of say that he's going to carve away from the other guys enough that I would want less Andre Drummond. I would definitely want less Kuzma. I would want no Markieff Morris at that point. I think that's sort of the main thing with AD for me is that he's probably, he's almost definitely not playable no matter what site you're playing on, what format you're playing on, but he's also going to shave enough away from the other guys where if it's 13 minutes, it's not that bad. If it's 20 minutes, it starts to get pretty bad and he's still unplayable then. So watch out for the minutes news. And I think still probably mitigate your exposure to the Lakers a little bit because Anthony Davis is so productive per minute that everybody around him is going to sort of get sucked into that vortex, even if it is short bursts.
We don't yet know the status of Ben Simmons, Tobias Harris, and Seth Curry after they sat the front half of a back-to-back for Philadelphia. Spags, how does this situation look tonight versus Milwaukee if they're in and if they're out?
So if they're in, to me, nobody here looks the most playable right now. I think the price points here for these guys, even against Milwaukee in a spot that I think would be competitive. We have seen these two teams really go heavy against each other and have big fantasy outputs because of them playing in such a competitive game in a really aggressive situation, just, two peer teams going against each other. That's going to happen sometimes. But I do think the one spot that I'm looking for and kind of hoping happens again is that we get Ben Simmons and Tobias Harris out again. Seth Curry, I don't really care about functionally. Maybe that opens up a little more for guys like Tyrese Maxey, or I guess if you want to take another shot with Shake Milton. But if you get Simmons and Tobias Harris out, or even one of them, I think going to Embiid becomes a really interesting tournament play here where we saw the upside yesterday. It's a back-to-back, Joel Embiid, certainly a guy, no stranger to hurting himself, but he is such a monster in court time without Simmons and Tobias Harris. And we saw that yesterday, but the numbers that they talked about on Live Before Lock were insane, like a 40% usage rate. The assist rate goes up a little bit too. It's crazy numbers that have been sustained over time when he's not playing alongside Simmons and Tobias Harris. So I think you're kind of hoping those guys sit out one more day and you get just one more night of fully unencumbered Embiid, making, I guess, another good run of MVP cases.
God, that's the scary part. He's playing at an MVP level, and as someone who has backed the Joker, I really need him to calm down. So I hope these guys are in, and if they are, I think it does become mostly priced out situation in a game that I don't have a ton of interest. I do think then it's funny. This is always what you're weighing in DFS. If those guys are all ruled in, I think the interest in Embiid will go way down, and it probably should, but that would make him an extreme tournament pivot. And it's still Joel Embiid. Now, if they're out, it's going to be on him once again. And we saw last night, everything's there on a back-to-back. I do worry a little, about they are a sizable dog here. They're 8-point dogs on the road. And this is the type of situation, if the game is even remotely out of hand, I think they err on the side of caution, of course. So you're just incurring some extra risk here with Philly, but we need the status. We need Doc to tell us what's going on here. There's a lot of moving parts. Seth Curry, I'll just agree with you, Spags. He's by far the least important. The other guys are direct impact to what I'd want to do here.
Detroit played yesterday, and we all know by now how that goes with the tanking Pistons on a back-to-back. Ben, what shenanigans should we expect tonight for Detroit versus San Antonio?
Yeah, that's right. Shenanigans. This team, first of all, they seem to play every Thursday and Friday because I don't do this show every day, and every single time I have to talk about the Pistons. So I guess step one is what's going on with Jeremy Grant. We have to see if he's going to take off here. If he does, obviously it's going to be the same story. We've got Bey, we've got Stewart, we've got a lot of guys vying for minutes, and they're all relatively cheap. It's a bad team, but they've been bad for a very long time. They're 9-point dogs on the road in San Antonio tonight. So I think we need to get clarification. I haven't seen anything firm. It's just been assumed, looking at what they're doing and they have nothing to play for, that they may rest some of these guys on back-to-backs, and we have to react accordingly. So I think we need to keep an eye out. Grant, of course, is the primary guy that I'm concerned. And if he sits, it does open the door for the younger guys in the Pistons to again be in play.
Yeah, I think the main thing is really what Ben just said. Jeremy Grant, a big one. And I think Mason Plumlee, too, another big one that you want to know he's out because obviously there's still minutes that can go to other bigs if you get Plumlee out and Isaiah Stewart starting, but you still have Jahlil Okafor in the mix. But it's not as important as when Mason Plumlee is in playing 20 to 25 minutes. Those minutes are a lot more secure than a guy like Okafor's are. And Stewart, we've seen the gigantic upside in enough games where the Spurs are a pretty competent team in keeping opposing bigs off the boards. And I think that's something that maybe Isaiah Stewart, you could sort of nickel and dime it, but with how good he's been in games without Mason Plumlee, showing really slate breaking upside, as much of a fantasy output as some of the bigger name centers out there. I do think Isaiah Stewart's the guy that takes the big jump. I'll still get a good amount of Sadiq Bey, as well as I think Josh Jackson being in the mix for me, though. If Hamidou Diallo's in, that does sort of cut into Josh Jackson's upside enough that I don't know that I want to go crazy there. But Sadiq Bey's been pretty productive. I think he's the one that takes a jump upwards. And Killian Hayes, too, has shown enough, I think, in these starts where we have seen depreciated lineups with Corey Joseph wrestling, that hopefully that's the case again. But the assumption right now would be that I think you get Grant, Corey Joseph, and Plumlee sitting one more time. And if you don't, then prepare to swap around. So I wouldn't treat it as a certainty, but it does seem like with Detroit, even without an injury report, you got to assume they're just going to rest some guys because they can get away with it. Nobody cares. They're not national TV, and clearly they don't want to win games anyway. So try to take some guys tonight.
Chad just pointed out, appreciate you fellas. They are ruled out, all of them.
Oh, officially? Okay.
That news. Yep.
Why are they not on the injury report? This injury report was terrible today.
Very lawless. But no,
lawless.
Appreciate that. And that solidifies exactly kind of what we're going for with the Pistons. They should be just relegated. That's a different show for a different time, and we wouldn't have to deal with this. But they're not. That's not the rules in the NBA. So we do have to deal with the value plays now.
Yeah, I just want to say specifically on the NBA injury report, which is the frame of reference we have when doing the show notes, it says Detroit Pistons not yet submitted. There have been no tweets from other handles out there of note that have come through. So it's not a pay attention thing. This is us. I guess it just came through 11 minutes ago. We literally were doing the show 11 minits ago. Fuck you guys.
Yeah, we're talking
it's not Spags' fault. It's not Spags' fault.
No, it's not. Hamidou Diallo being questionable, though, I think does make it more appealing to go to Josh Jackson now that I'm seeing the news, because I can take a break from doing the show to look at the news. So that's, I think, cut us some slack when these things come through as we are talking and doing silly bits and talking about stupid Kermit the Frog Eric emoji.
Yeah, blame it on Eric, Chad. It's not our fault.
How dare he and his emojis distract us from this Pistons news?
Always comes back to Eric.
always the pick.
All right, y'all, get access to all the great Awesemo Plus tools and content for nearly every DFS sport out there with an Awesemo Plus weekly pass for $29.95. This includes full access to all the premium content and tools on Awesemo.com, including player projections, ownership projections, our premium Slack channel, lineup builder, and much more. We also have a special MMA deal running for UFC 261, Usman versus Masvidal. On April 24th, get 50% off your first month of Awesemo Plus MMA when you use promo code UFC261. That's $14.98 for 30 days of Awesemo Plus MMA, which includes our fighter projections, ownership projections, and our top fighter tools, which compares projected ownership with a chance of any fighter being one of the top fighters. This offer is valid through Saturday, April 24th. Stop guessing, start winning. Join Awesemo Plus today. Moving right along to our one-on-one segment, in these battles between stars, which player would you rather have in NBA DFS or prop bets tonight? We've got Luka Doncic and the Mavericks look to avoid the play-in game, while Giannis and the Bucks look to hold home court against the Sixers. Spags, who wins in this one-on-one matchup, Luka or Giannis?
So both guys, to me, I think project a little bit under where I'd like them to be, and I think that gives me some cause for concern. But I do think the game environment in Philadelphia, or the matchup versus Philadelphia, is one that I have a little more belief in. Luka's on a pretty good run right now. I actually had a good amount of him yesterday just because he was so low owned and ended up playing well again. Was a part of some of my lineups that where you had to have 4 or 5 guys scoring 60 fantasy points. Luka was one of those guys, so I have no gripes really against Luka. I think he's a fine play overall. But Giannis in a spot against Philadelphia where if we get either, if it's just Embiid or it's Embiid, Simmons, and Tobias Harrison, I don't think it really matters. I think Giannis is going to have to show up for this spot and show up in a major way. So I think the game being competitive, I think the game being against, again, 2 rival teams that have shown up in big ways in the past from a fantasy perspective and a real life perspective, I think Giannis to me would just be a little bit more appealing, even though Luka, I think, going a little bit undervalued because he had a really cold run. Now he's playing well. So both guys should be in your player pool, but I think Giannis would be the one that comes out a little bit ahead.
I'm going to go just the opposite, very close for me, but I'm going to go to Luka. And I think it's more a product of looking at this. I think the Mavericks need a push. They don't want to be in that playing game. And that's a whole separate topic for another time. But Luka's starting to come into form again. Competitive game here. They're a 3-point favorite at home, 216 total. I think his minutes could push up to the upper 30s tonight, especially if the game is competitive. And the Mavericks are kind of in that mode. So we'll have to see, of course, what the Sixers roll out. I do think that does impact Giannis, and we're splitting hairs here. These are 2 of the highest projected guys in the Awesemo projections, and for good reason. So if you have the money, either of them is a fine option, of course.
After a near miracle shot last night, Joel Embiid looks to keep his MVP caliber play going against Milwaukee. For Chicago, Nikola Vucevic looks to bounce back after his worst game as a ball against the Hornets. Ben, which big man do you want tonight, Embiid or Vooch?
So we did talk about this a little with Embiid. If all those guys are out, I would go to him just because the upside, it's just immense. And he has slate breaking potential, and you're not incurring that much more in terms of a price bump, $500. But if those guys are ruled in, I do think Vooch is going to be tasked with trying to keep the Bulls without Levine. He's going to be busy. The minutes should be back to a normal. He only played 25 minutes against the Cavs. That was just a lost game. He was terrible. They were terrible. I don't worry about that. That's a complete outlier. And before that, he was really rolling. So even though I do give the nod to Embiid most scenarios, Vooch could be a pivot, and that's where ownership comes into play. We've talked about Kobe White. If you want to get exposure to the Bulls in a different way, that could be it, going to the front court. But it's just tough because there's value there, as Spags mentioned earlier, and you're paying, a pretty sizable tag for Vooch.
Yeah, I think the money on Vooch is just a little bit scary to me, where I think even if Tobias Harrison, Simmons are in, I can just talk myself to the ceiling of Embiid a little bit more than paying up for Vooch. And I think this is really on DraftKings a question of just like, do you want to pay for a 10K Vooch? And if he were 9K, I think I would be very much in favor of going his way a little bit more, even though he still wouldn't project fantastically for me. I think he would project well enough where I can go, okay, cool. I'm getting a little bit of savings. I know there's a ceiling there that looks good. But against Charlotte, this is a game with a really low implied total, kind of shockingly so. A 210 combined total in this game where Chicago's projected for 6.5 less points than their season average. So I have some concerns that it's just not going to be a Vooch day. And I think Embiid, there are a lot of ways for him to get there, no matter what the team is around him. So I would want to go to Embiid a little bit more, but it's just one of those things where it wouldn't shock me if Vooch has a good day. I just don't see it for myself today.
And finally, after a big win last night, Phoenix is on the road tonight against a Celtics team not at full strength. For the Suns, which guard, Ben, would you rather target tonight between Devin Booker or CP3?
So to be honest, I actually wouldn't want either of them. I don't like the Suns.
Did you make the one-on-one?
I know, Spags. I was scrambling. Cut me some slack here. Yeah, I was just like, you know what? They sound good. I think it would be CP3 because I would look. You're getting a $1,200 discount, and I don't see a ton of difference between the two. But again, this is a spot against Boston. I think it's going to be a competitive game in some regard. I do think Boston will ultimately win, but nothing stands out. 221 total, I guess, is decent, but you look, there's enough pivots on a 6-game slate. You're not really funneled to these guys. So off a game like that, maybe I'm overrating the back-to-back and the emotion of that Sixers game, but I'm going to say that this is a kind of a stay away, but if I had to, I would look to reduce the salary. That would be CP3.
Yeah, I think I would pick CP3 as well here. I don't really like either guy either, so I'm on the same page as Ben there. And I agree that these guys, to me, coming off of a tough spot against Philadelphia, where that was a very competitive game, one that I think they probably didn't expect to be as competitive as it ended up being because of Embiid just willing that team into the entire situation overall. I feel like today against Boston, one thing to remember, Devin Booker has had a lot of good games against Boston. His famous 80-point day, I believe it was also against Boston. So he has had some really big outlier efforts, and I'm afraid to pick against him just because I think matchup-wise, this does get a little bit easier without having Jaylen Brown out there. But I think just on the value, you have to take Chris Paul a little bit more. He projects better. The assist upside is there. All those things I think are going to benefit. You also have Jay Crowder not in the mix, which hurts the assist upside a little bit for Chris Paul, but he's still going to get some of that with Cam Johnson. He'll also pick up a little bit more usage. So I'd go Chris Paul's way. But again, like a lot of these, I think Devin Booker on a short slate, especially like tournament upside is certainly there for him because he can put up 50 real life points and it wouldn't shock me one bit.
All right, y'all, we have exciting news for you. We want to reward all of you boys and girls and show you what happens when you watch our shows, use our tools on Awesemo, and take our incredible advice. We are implementing a new Hall of Fame. So Jordan's going to run some slides across the screen. Here's what you have to do if you want to be a part of it. You just download the Awesemo from the Awesemo avatar from awesemo.com/avatar. If you place in the top 3 of a contest with over 5,000 contestants, and you tweet your wins to @Awesemo HOF account, you will win a free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. So he's running through these screenshots. So again, use your avatar if you place in the top 3 of a 5,000 person or more contest. Tweet us your account, your winnings, and you will win a free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. It's as easy as that. We want to see your winnings. We want to see how you're doing. We love the success of our Awesemo Plus members. If you do happen to win big in DFS using our tools, advice, or content, give us that shout out on Twitter by tagging any of our hosts or Awesemo social handles. We will be sure to retweet it from our @Awesemo HOF account where we compile winning screenshot shout outs from the Awesemo Plus community. Guys, anything you want to add to that?
I feel like Ben's always been a Hall of Famer in my eyes, and I'm glad finally. It would be nice if you got the recognition, I guess, from our Awesemo peers, but I think it's just nice that we finally have a place that we can induct Dr. Ben and maybe even myself someday. I don't know. I feel like we now have hopes. We have a place to achieve, to strive to be better at, and I think that's really the main thing for both us and for everybody out there.
Yeah, lifetime achieve. Hopefully, we'll do an induction ceremony. You and me will be inaugural members, but no, honestly, this is something that I think a lot of people aren't aware of. It's as simple as that. Like, you're playing these contests and this is just extra upside. Rep our avatar, tweet us, get some publicity, get some shout outs, and you get a free month. What's wrong with that? So no reason not to do it. Obviously, a ton of people are winning each and every night from the site. So why not join in on the fun?
You will be an elite company.
Elite company. It's true.
Elite. All right. Let's head to the diamond, shall we? It is time for Biggest Bet. Here are some of the top bets and plays on tonight's MLB DFS slate. Which of these top 5 odds getters on OddsShopper do you think is the best overall bet to hit a home run tonight? We've got Mike Trout plus 270, Fernando Tatis plus 330, Pete Alonso plus 330, Yordan Alvarez plus 350, and Justin Upton plus 350 Spags.
So I'll say the usual caveat that I like to throw in here because I think it is a noteworthy thing when some of these guys are amidst guys like Fernando Tatis, Mike Trout. Justin Upton to me stands out as being that guy amidst his top 5 where I don't think he should have these odds, but it does seem like him having those odds is a cosign from somebody out there that he's in a pretty good situation that is maybe going to benefit him when Justin Upton's power has been hard to pinpoint over the years. But the guy for me is Pete Alonso. The wind blowing out, I think, looks pretty good for him. I also like the matchup going against Trevor Williams. I think a lot of people, especially for DFS, have started to buy into Trevor Williams a bit more. And I think that's something that I am not seeing based off the longer term sample size, giving up a 220 ISO overall to all batters since 2019. And people, I think, can point to the Pirates time that he had and how they kind of have ruined a lot of pitchers who have left and looked better. But I just think Trevor Williams is not one of those guys. And again, the wind blowing out in Wrigley is a big thing. And Pete Alonso, to me, is due for some positive regression this year because his power numbers kind of fell off the cliff over the last season. So to me, taking a guy like Pete Alonso there, I think this is where his campaign to recover whatever goodwill he's lost comes back. And I think he hits home runs today.
I'm actually going to tell. So normally I just go with Mike Trout because that's the easiest thing to justify. But,
Ben, the baseball guy.
Yeah, it's super easy. You just say, I'm Mike Trout. He's a dominant player. But the Angels team total is not significant. It's baseball, so it's small edges, but it is less. And as Spags mentioned, blowing out at Wrigley here, the Mets are a team that I am looking to target. I might actually bet the Mets tonight. I don't bet a ton of baseball, but I do. Occasionally, they're a slight favorite here. So by product of that, I'm going to go with Alonso and actually look to short the Cubs in several areas tonight.
And now for biggest arm, which of these top 5 odds getters on OddsShopper do you think is the best strikeouts over bet tonight? Is there a good under bet that you like? We've got Nick Pivetta over under 5.5 strikeouts, Trevor Williams over under 4.5, Christian Javier over under 4.5, Walker Buehler over under 6.5, and Aaron Sanchez over under 4.5. Ben.
So I'm sticking with my formula. I'm going to short Trevor Williams here. Wind's blowing out. I like the Mets here. I think he could get rocked and be knocked out early. The other thing I look at the Mets so far this year, they've been very good at not striking out. They're second in the league, just under 8 strikeouts per game as a team. So you combine that with the situation. I think it's a pretty good one. And, 4.5 is a pretty fair number. But again, with a team that's not striking out a ton and a situation where he might not be in there late in the game, I'll look to the under 4.5 here.
I think the one thing I would point out, we don't do the DFS hedge segment every day because it's not as applicable, but to me, this is one spot where DFS, I know a lot of people today are going to be playing Nick Pivetta. I'm not a believer in Nick Pivetta overall. He's given up a 235 ISO since 2019. The strikeout numbers for him have started to get better, and he's still an under league average strikeout pitcher, a 22.8% K rate for him over the last season and change. But I do think if you take his over on the strikeout bet today and you fade him in DFS, that's one way to maybe capture the upside, because I think going against him or just ignoring the situation entirely in DFS, the move you'd want to make, because about 2/3 of lineups on DraftKings today are either going to have Seattle stacks or have Nick Pivetta. And I think avoiding that situation entirely is one way to get different, where maybe they both don't have enough of an upside to really get there. But this bet I think looks pretty good. So just as a hedge perspective, I think the Pivetta bet's interesting, but the guy who jumps out the most to me, and I believe for the strikeout bets, something I mentioned on yesterday's show, that I believe in taking the arm talent. And I think Christian Javier's got the best arm talent, I guess, besides Walker Buehler, but Buehler, I think a little bit overvalued. Christian Javier, 26% K rate. You're getting a discount on the strikeout prop here. He doesn't pitch too deep into games, averaging a bit under 5 innings per start, but still a guy who does have the ability to start to pitch more. And I think it's going against an Angels lineup that is good, certainly, but not in their home park where they have a lot more upside. So I think taking Javier, hoping he can continue to have a 26% K rate, maybe even improve upon it. And there's a lot of reason to go there instead of these other guys who are just very middling. It's a very, very bad pitching slate today. And the live before lock guys will talk more about it, but this is one of the worst pitching slates I think we've seen even on a shorter MLB slate.
Okay. And now it is time, the reason you're all here, really, for the Dr. Ben Rasa prop of the day. Dr. Ben, now at 13-4 after a win on a Kevin Love points over the last time he was on the show. Dr. Ben, how does it feel to be hitting at a solid 76% clip on the tip-off?
Yeah, it feels good. It feels a little scary because that will regress, of course. But you know what? We're going to take it while we have it. Yeah, Kevin Love, that was a weird one. Felt like it was fully in control the whole time, but I only won by the hook. He finished with 15 points, but it was, I thought, very comfortable. Only had 2 points in the fourth quarter. So we cashed that on Monday, and now we look to keep it going.
Before we get to your prop bet of the day, at what point do you put the doctor coat back on?
So I've decided in my mind, based off nothing, that if once we run it back up to a win streak of 5, I may add the stethoscope. And if I get back up to 10, I will add the lab coat. And if we go beyond that, who knows?
So you've actually thought about this. I didn't expect that.
Yeah, don't worry. I got it all planned out over here. The code is right here, but we got to get on a win streak. I don't just pull that out for no reason,
Yep. We don't want to get cocky if we're not winning, you know?
That's right.
All right, here we go. Hush your mouths, infidels, for it is time for the tip-offs true believers to listen to our sun and moon, our alpha and omega, our peanut butter and jelly, Dr. Ben Rasa. Dr. Ben, you have brought untold riches to our people with your recent prop bets on the tip-off, and for that, we all owe you a tremendous debt in both the literal and figurative senses. Please allow one more chance to worship at the altar of the delicate genius of our resident money doctor, Ben. What is the Dr. Ben Rasa prop bet of the day?
Yeah, Jordan, you weren't lying. Jordan's like, don't read your thing so it'll come in fresh.
These are getting very elaborate.
Smart.
I like calling people infidels. I'm glad I can make Kayla do that. And it's really, it's one of the highlights of my work week.
Yeah, that's not bad. So this is going to be an interesting one. We haven't had this too much, but it's something I'm glad in a way that we get to talk about. So I'm going to a weird prop today. It's certainly not a premium one, with Wendell Carter Jr., who has been jettisoned from Chicago, and he's now on the Magic. Going over 13.5 points, and I got that at plus 104 this morning. They're playing the Pelicans, and I just feel like his minutes, he's looked good. They're showcasing him a little bit, and he was certainly falling out of favor in Chicago. But the interesting part about this is I go to Odd Shopper right now. I took a bad line here, it looks like. Right now, you can get over 12.5 at minus 102. So the market is moving against me. Obviously, that's not something you want to see. Does it mean it's going to lose? No. But certainly, if you haven't placed this prop and you want to, you're getting an extra point here. Now you only got to go over 12.5. You're not laying that much more juice. I still do feel confident with it. I think you look at the Pelicans, they've been torched all year, particularly from behind the arc, which is not Wendell Carter's game. But you know what? He's shooting very well here, not from three. He doesn't take a lot anyway. And the minutes are secure. I think he'll push over 30 tonight, have opportunities. Game should stay competitive enough for him to hit those minutes, and the volume should be there. In April, taking 11 shots a game, that's more than enough to clear this. So despite getting a bad line, Spags, I still feel okay with it. But do you want to come on board, or are you going to go with the public and go against me here?
No, I would take the over on this one too. I have him just by a little bit above that 13.8 projected points. And I think one thing for a guy like Wendell Carter is he's going to have a worse day rebounding today going against Steven Adams. And I think you could just look at DeAndre Jordan's last two games to compare the Steven Adams effect, where he basically was completely ineffective on the boards one day, then came off the bench the next day and was a monster. That's what Steven Adams does. He just keeps guys off the glass. So the rest of his teammates can get more rebounds. And I think that's a positive for the most part. But when you're taking a points plus rebounds prop, it's not a good thing because you're taking just the points. I think it's perfectly fine because Adams as a defender gets a lot of recognition for being very good at the rim, but he's not going to follow a guy like Wendell Carter out to the mid-range. He's not going to, if Wendell Carter does put up a few threes, he's not going to be out there. So I think there's a lot of ways he gets there in points and actually falls a lot shorter rather with rebounds. So I think to me, yeah, the points prop looks good and I have no issue with it, even though I'm surprised you dig deep for some of these props, Ben. And I feel like Wendell Carter would not have been the first name that came to mind for me today.
Yeah, I mean, it's a situation, I have a couple of teams that I'm looking to short, and I like that. I like situations where I don't think the market has had a chance to catch up. It's not like he just got traded, but certainly, of course, he's not a long-time Magic, and these teams are in flux. And I just look at it, he's gone 30 minutes or more in 4 of 5 games. The only one he didn't was against Atlanta. They lost by 16 points. That was kind of out of reach. And he's been going over this number. So I look at it, and you mentioned, I think they can stretch the bigs a little bit. I'm not worried about the rebounds. I hope he has no rebounds. I don't care. Just get all the points. Nobody cares about that. I was surprised to see it drop to 12.5, but you know what? You can't get the best number every time. I'm still not overly concerned. And if he has a good game tonight, we'll be in business.
All right. Best of luck, Dr. Rasa. We'll be checking in tomorrow to see how you did.
It's true. Yeah. Thursdays are always more important because everyone forgets. I can say anything on a Friday. No one's even paying attention. Thursdays, I got to come back and get the shame bell from Game of Thrones if I lose. So we're going to need to cash this one.
We should get a shame bell.
Oh, great. Of all yeah, that's what I need, a shame bell. Sure. Why not? If I lose 5 straight.
Maybe. Yes. That'll be the thing. Win 5, wear your doctor coat. Lose 5, get the shame bell.
Okay.
And lose 10. Ooh, the punishments.
Yeah, get whipped through the
Who knows?
Yeah.
Beheaded.
Wow, just take it the full way. Then you're gonna have to find a.
Look, I mean, she said infidels today, so now we might as well go all the way with it.
Oh wow!
Start beheading people.
Now I'm thinking about Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna get to our no house advantage prop or not, but really quickly, I just got the weirdest alert on my phone, and I don't know. Spags, we're probably too far away to if you have gotten this. An emergency alert: a natural gas leak near me.
Are you doing fart jokes, Kayla? You doing bits? I did not get that. No.
Okay, well, it's probably just in my area, but now I'm worried. And now I kind of feel lightheaded.
I think what you should do is just light a match to see See what happens.
A natural gas leak is by me. That's scary. Not gonna do that. But if I just keel over, that is why. So just a heads up.
So if your computer goes black this time, we're going to be a little more concerned like that there's actually a disaster.
Perhaps, yes. That was just the weirdest thing. I've never gotten an emergency alert ever about anything, let alone a gas leak near me. Okay. We're going to take it back to the NBA. How about that? Here are some of No House Advantage's props of the day for key players. Do you like the over or under on them, and how many points would you assign? First up, we've got Giannis over under 36.5 points plus rebounds. Spags.
So for this one, I'm intrigued by the over. I don't think it's going to be a great bet according to Awesemo based on what I was looking at earlier, which disappoints me. He's got it slightly shaded towards the under here, 54% chance of hitting the under, but I'm a believer in the over. I like the spot for Giannis going against Embiid, and these guys have had gigantic, I mean, they had one game in particular that I might just be remembering a little too fondly, but it was a Sunday game where they had both like 70 fantasy points in it. We're going head to head, and it was just, to me, like a heavyweight boxing match. I feel like in a way that you don't get it anymore in boxing. You can get it sometimes in the NBA. And I think in this spot, especially if it ends up being Giannis versus just Embiid with no Simmons and Tobias Harris, I think Giannis kind of rises with the tide there. And he's been, playing enough minutes to come back from injury, but hasn't shown the gigantic ceiling. And I think to me, this is a spot where I do expect Giannis to show up. I expect it to be a really competitive game. And I think taking the over this one, to me, definitely not a high confidence one. It's a 50-50-ish one from Awesemo for good reason. But to me, a 4 or 5 pointer that I don't mind getting to today.
Yeah, I think that's really the point to make. This wouldn't go near the top. I think it would be way too aggressive for like an 8 or 9, a 10 pointer. But you could put it on the card either way. I'm with you, Spags. If I had to take a position, I would go to the over. I do think that the Bucks at home tonight, sizable favorites. They kind of get it done, and Giannis has a more potential for a ceiling here. Depending, again, we say this apparently every segment. We have to see what's going on with the Sixers because they keep us in the dark here with some of the personnel. But regardless, I don't think any of that will majorly impact this line. And I'll go, we're looking at a pseudo coin flip. I'll go to the over as well.
All right, we've got Devin Booker over under 26.5 points. Ben.
So we've talked, a lot about this Suns team, and I'm going to go to the under here. I don't like the spot. Simple as that. I think coming off the game last night, it's just tough for the Suns team to get right back up. And I respect Boston enough that they can keep him in check. I will say, Spags kind of talked about this in different contexts earlier. He's the type of player where I think he could score 50 points, and that's in the range of outcomes, but his median outcome is under this. And so you're not really worried whether you lose by a half a point or 30 points. You're going to have some where you get blown out here, but more often than not, it will come in under.
Yeah, I think right now, to me, it looks like an under, and Awesemo seems to be heavily favoring the under here, over a 60% chance of hitting the under. I think this is one, though, to me that, and again, this is like Ben with the one-on-ones where I put this on here, and honestly, I probably wouldn't play it on House Advantage because I think there's a lot of risk to it. And I also think it's like it looks good as an under, so maybe people will play it. And I think there's a lot of risk on taking the under, too, because it wouldn't shock me if you just completely strafed the Celtics. A lot of teams have done that this year. So I think to me, this one's a stay away, and the under is going for Awesemo. So, I like the idea of taking the over maybe as like a 1-pointer to get some leverage on the field as just a little bit of cherry on top to get away on No House Advantage. But besides that, I think this is probably a stay away because he can kill you on either side and it wouldn't be shocking.
All right. Patty Mills over under 9.5 points plus assists. Spags.
So this is one that, according to Awesemo, is one of the best bets on the board today. And I think it's funny to talk about, like, obviously we all want to debate the Giannis's and the Devin Booker props and all those, and there's a lot more meat on the bone to talk about. And I know House Advantage, sometimes you just have to take the 10-pointer or the 9-pointer of it, one that's like, hey, Patty Mills plays enough minutes and he's steadily in the rotation. And Patty Mills, to me, on slates where there's no value guys popping up at all, I get Patty Mills because he's a guy who's usually cheap and is pretty productive per minute. And the line on him for the Spurs tonight just doesn't seem like the most efficient. 9.5 points and assists is a pretty low number for a guy like Mills. The median projection from Awesemo is 12.7. I would be pretty close to that as well. So I feel like for Mills, it's an easy over here and probably one of the best bets on the board, even though you don't start your day thinking, I'm going to build my day on No House Advantage around Patty Mills. That is sort of the thing you have to do on there to have upside.
Those are the best kind. Let me tell you, as someone who bets a lot of egregious things, when people aren't paying attention, you get inefficient lines. Like, it's very hard to slip one pass when you're talking about Giannis or Embiid or one of these big time players. Patty Mills, no one's even paying attention. So this line is a little inefficient. Awesemo's picked up on that, and I totally agree. So you can lean over confidently there. And those are the ones, I mean, I hope Wendell Carter falls into that bucket. But again, those are the type of props. If you dig and you find some players that aren't getting a ton of interest, a lot of times those are the lines that actually have the most value.
All right. And friends, as always, don't forget to play on No House Advantage, our sponsor, who is taking a different spin on daily fantasy sports by offering player prop contests across the NBA, MLB, NFL, and PGA for cash prizes. This exclusively peer-to-peer fantasy sports platform levels the playing field and makes it easier for you to win real cash compared with your traditional DFS sites. The best part is you can join for free today. Just download the No House Advantage app and use promo code Awesemo to receive a deposit bonus of up to $20 for new signups. Be your friends, not the house. Win big with player props today. Shout out to my fellow SoCal peeps, Eric and Leslie. They also both got the natural gas emergency alert. Eric says it's nowhere near me. But the three of us don't live anywhere near each other, so that's great. But Eric seems to think that I am fine to go outside. So he's like the natural gas detective. Like, what's the equivalent to a weatherman? That's what Eric is to natural gas.
I was just thinking how it was good to see one of our favorite people in chat, a person well-deserving of an emoji on the Awesemo YouTube channel, see Nightbot in chat. That was who I was excited to see popping up and giving some quality links out there. Nightbot, one of my favorites. That's what really I was focused on in the chat. I don't even know what you're talking about.
Okay. Anyway, let's get to good dog, bad dog.
Call back to yesterday, Kayla. Come on.
I know it was a callback. Ben doesn't know what you're talking about.
I don't. I'm not gonna lie.
Nightbot is living rent free in Eric Lindquist's head. Yeah, that was the goal. Steven Leibovitz knows.
All right, let's move on to good dog, bad dog. In real life, there is no such thing as a bad dog. In betting and DFS, there are a lot of underdogs who may have no chance in their game. So who's a good dog to target tonight and who's a bad one? Ben, we'll start with your good dog.
This isn't even like they might not even be a dog by the time this game starts, but the Celtics, they're my favorite bet of the night. I think they win comfortably tonight at home. They're 1.5 point dogs. So that doesn't even really count, but I'm going to take them because I went first. I get to capture the easy answer. I think that's where I'm going.
I'll get contrarian with my good dog, and I'm going to go to the Detroit Pistons, a team that is hapless and has a lot of guys that get ruled out when we're starting the show and then make me feel bad about myself. But I'm just going to turn back. I'm going to show their hate with a little bit of love. And I think Detroit's a team that could hang in versus the San Antonio Spurs team that's been improved, I think, for the most part of the last few weeks, but still not world beaters by any stretch, still with not a good defense. They just play slow to mask a lot of the things that they're bad at, like defending 3-pointers, a 37.4% shooting from deep allowed. So I think in this spot, to me, there's going to be some easy shots for Detroit. And I like the scrappy, no star Detroit Pistons team. I feel like they're not the most talented, but they play hard and they have guys who actually care out there. We're trying to do, kind of create their own ways in the league. And I think that's what I like to see from my guys and my bets as well. I'm going to back my scrappy underdog Detroit Pistons today.
Love it. Love it. Spags, give us your bad dog.
Bad dog for me, I think, is going to be I'm going to go with the Lakers here. I know that Anthony Davis is going to be back, and that's even if he's playing 13, 15 minutes, that is sort of going to get trending in the right direction for him. But Dallas, to me, I love the way Luka's playing right now. And as I mentioned earlier in the show, he's just looking a little bit more like himself after a weird stretch that he was kind of deferring to guys more than you would think. And it just didn't look the best for him. But it seems like he and Porzingis are starting to hit their stride. The Jalen Brunsons of the world are also doing their job. Another good player to target today on No House Advantage. So I think in this spot, to me, I think Dallas puts the Lakers away. And the Lakers just not in that competition right now of a team like Dallas without LeBron out there.
Yeah, that is a good one. I mean, that's a tough spot to think that they could pull a win. And like we've talked about, I think the Mavericks kind of need that game. I'm going to go to the Sixers. I'm just that Phoenix. Maybe I'm overrating like that was the most emotional game ever last night. That's probably not the case, but the Sixers, we'll see who is in and who is out. But going into Milwaukee, that's a tough spot. Giannis and Co will be ready to 25.5 total. The 7.5, 8, I don't mind taking that number. But if you're talking about, one of the sizable dogs winning outright, I don't really see Philly doing that. So I was in chat talking about the Celtics, which, and they bring up some good points. Certainly Booker and CP3, if those guys play, I mean, it's a toss-up game. But I do think at home, Boston will hold serve tonight.
And moving over to make or break Ben, which player or game currently looks like a make or break spot to you on tonight's slate?
So normally I always just say the player prop, but I can't say that Wendell Carter is the make or break. That's just not allowed. So I'm going to stick with this Suns Celtics game. There's a lot in there. Particularly I like them as a bet, and then figuring out what you want to do with Kemba, paying the premium possibly for Tatum on DraftKings. That may be contrarian. We'll have to see what goes on there. And then if you like any Suns options, depending on who is out for the wings, Bridges, Cam Johnson, these guys could come into the limelight as we get closer to lock. But overall for me, that's a game I'd love to get right. Obviously I want the Celtics to win the game, and that's going to be one of the keys to my night.
I think my make or break is probably going to be Kemba Walker, though the ownership's going to be high enough for him that I probably won't be alone in that one. So I guess I'll go back to the Pistons again. I think in particular, if we get Hamidou Diallo out, Josh Jackson is going to be a real make or break for me, because he's a guy that is meaningfully squeezed by having Diallo in the mix, just taking enough off the plate as the backup sort of gunner that comes out there. Jackson getting a few more minutes, I think, would make him look like one of the stronger plays on the slate to me. And also a key way where Detroit stays close for the Pistons, maybe even wins that game against the Spurs that I talked about earlier. So two ways there that Detroit would be a make or break, but I think Josh Jackson in particular, like if I get Diallo out, I will be so heavy on Josh Jackson, rooting for that guy to come through.
And last but not least today, fade of the day. Is there one game, player, or team that you anticipate you'll have a lot less interest in than the rest of the public? Chris Spags.
I'll say the Spurs on the other side, which I feel like it's odd that this game, I think, not the sexiest game in the world, not the most important game on the slate, but one that I think people are going to be owning some of the guys a little bit more. One in particular, DeJounte Murray. I just don't get the ownership on him most days. He doesn't pick up a lot of the slack in games where DeRozan has been out. He also just hasn't been that great night to night in games where DeRozan's been in, and Murray could certainly spike an upside, but there's so much ownership going to him on both DraftKings and FanDuel today, and I just don't think it's deserved. So DeJounte Murray, just one of those guys that I'm always happy to get less in the field of. And if he kills me tonight against a weak Pistons team, then I guess I've made a lot of mistakes in my life that brought me to this moment.
Yeah, I mean, that's one we already talked about. Patty Mills will handle it for you. Yeah, I mean, this is a situation. I'm going to go back to, I don't think this is going to be a make or break, and a lot of people are doing it, but I just wanted to reiterate, I don't like the Lakers in any capacity. I may bet Dallas, and AD is something I feel very strongly. There's almost no chance that he's relevant tonight. He may blur the lines for some of these other players, but we have to take a wait and see approach there. So I have nothing to do with the Lakers. There's no chance that I bet them tonight. If anything, they're another team that I may look to short kind of across the board.
All right. Steve in the chat's got jokes. No, Steve, we were not pressed on time today. We've got 2 minutes to spare, guys. Wow. Any fun stories? Ben, what's going on in golf?
So golf is a team event, and I'll be honest, I played a little, but not nearly as much as I normally play. It's pretty interesting. It's just, there's just so many birdies. The shot tracker's kind of messed up. I'm excited to get ready. Next week is a good week. We got the NFL draft and the Kentucky Derby, two of my favorite things. We will have content for both, by the way. We have a show coming up for the NFL draft. You'll hear about it early next week. And I'll have some Kentucky Derby antics because everybody likes to bet on horses. That's a rule. Yes, we do. Yes.
Spags, what's going on in your world?
I'm excited to finally play MLB The Show because one of our regulars in chat, Tony's been mentioning it for a while, and actually had one of my close friends out here text me yesterday asking if I had gotten to it yet, because all the sports video game fans and baseball fans excited to have that game on Xbox for the first time. So I'm gonna be trying that out, I think, after this show, and probably being bad on it based on what everybody sold me. But I'm willing to learn, and I think that's the main thing. That's what we always seek out in life, Kayla, is just to learn and improve every single day.
Absolutely. We're gonna need a full report tomorrow.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure that'll be riveting for everybody to tune in for Dr. Ben's prop bets that actually make people money, and also me talking about a video game as an adult man.
Yes, you will both be back with us tomorrow. I believe we're at 3 Eastern.
That sounds right.
Always forget to check. 3 or 3:30. We'll let you know. We'll send out those tweets. Hopefully I'm with you if this gas leak doesn't get to me.
You with this gas leak.
Do they let you know when you can go outside again? Apparently it's not anywhere near me, but the fact that I got the alert still freaks me out. Anyway,
I think you're probably okay. You can breathe in gas. If you go outside, that's actually probably the best place to be in a natural gas.
Isn't that how people die?
I think perfect way to end a lot of ways.
Stop in tomorrow to find out the answer to that question.
Will Kayla survive the cliffhanger that we end the tip off on?
And on that note, thank you all for tuning in. Thanks to Spags and Ben for their expertise. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. The MLB Live Before Lock is coming your way next on a different stream. We'll be back with you tomorrow. I'm Kayla Knierim. Have a good one.